But it's funny you mention this, right? Traditions. And I know you're a big traditions guy. I'm a big traditions guy when it comes to certain things. And in sports, which is what we do here, we're a sports podcast. Have you ever noticed that every holiday or most holidays have some type of a sporting event that is attached to them? I think for most people, Christmas Day is NBA, Thanksgiving is the NFL. I think New Year's Day has now become the NHL, or at least around that time period with the games that are played outdoors. I can't remember what they're called now. Somebody will correct me on that too, I'm sure. And even I think of the PGA at Easter time is when you see the Masters most of the time, or around that time period. Obviously, Easter, ebbs and flows with the calendar. But July 4th doesn't really have a sport. I don't even really think baseball embraces it that much because there's 161 other games. However, in what has got to be the most fitting thing for this country, competitive eating is the sport of choice on July 4th. And I don't know how you feel about this. We're going to dive deep into competitive eating, but just your initial thoughts on all of that hoopla, whether it's July 4th or not.
So with the competitive eating thing, specifically, I guess the Nathan's Hot Dog Challenge, right? I think it's sort of taken on a life of its own because of Joey Chestnut and his historic run that he's been on. And I feel like growing up as maybe when I was a teenager in high school, I feel like when you watch like the Travel Channel and stuff like they always had things on about this and different competitive eaters and different contests that they would participate in. And I remember being really like intrigued by it when I was younger. And now I kind of look at it and I'm like, man, like that's got to be a lot on your body. And I know that in the modern day, right? People probably imagine when you hear competitive eating, the first thought is, oh, this must be some big fat guy, but it's not. I mean, one of the only challengers that Joey Chestnut's ever had, right? It was and forgive me, a Japanese, Chinese, Asian man, small in stature, skinny, and so I don't know, man. I mean, I guess is it a stretch to call these guys athletes?
It's funny you mention that because Joey Chestnut has something like 40 world records in competitive eating, and you have to train for it. I mean, think about this, right? You and I are big dudes, so we know how to put down food. We enjoy eating. It's probably my biggest vice, if I'm being honest. And I have actually been in an eating contest. I was in a burrito eating contest one time. This was in my late 20s, and it was for Moe's Southwest Grill. I'm not sure if they have those in Peoria, but yes, I had friends that lived in Gainesville at the time. He was in vet school, so we went down there, and a friend of his was actually somebody who liked to participate in this. Now, he was a little bit of a bigger guy, but not like a huge guy, right? Probably on par with us. So we went there because you got free food. So the idea was that we would go there, half participate, and then we'd get to take the rest of the food home, call it a day, whatever. So they had different heats. I think there was like a dozen heats or something. And if you won your heat, you got free Moe's for the year. If you won the whole thing, you got free Moe's for life. Well, your boy here came in second place. So,
Nice.
yes, I ate three of the mini burritos. They're like this big. And I think it was like 2 minutes and 13 seconds or something like that. It was 5 bites of burrito. So I somehow, and it wasn't even hard. Like, that's the weird part, but I felt awful afterward. So I can only imagine how these friggin' competitive eaters, which by the way, did you know that there is a major league of competitive eating?
That doesn't surprise me because I know they have the mustard belt, right, for the Nathan's thing
Oh, it's
or
insane.
whatever. Yeah, so
So
I'm not surprised.
the thing that you get here, and we talk about morality sometimes on this show, and sometimes what you get is you have two sides of the coin here. And I feel like every single year you have the camp that talks about how the gluttonous nature of this, and let's be honest, it is gluttonous. They're not eating for sustenance, they're eating for competitive nature and money. And there's a lot of waste that goes there. So I understand that. But then a lot of the other people are like, what's the harm, really? Like, what's the harm? Because there are a lot of bigger problems in this country. And honestly, homelessness and people that are starving is not even being solved by our government. So I'm not sure it's going to be solved by canceling the hot dog eating contest. And that's always the rage that goes on. But I find it disgusting because that kind of eating, even as somebody who loves to eat, I don't understand it. Like, and it's a food or foods, as I'm going to list off a couple of these world records here, that I love, and I would never want to ruin them. Like, what do you think Joey Chestnut actually eats for his regular diet?
Probably pretty healthy food. It's probably the only way he can keep from his heart exploding. I imagine his regular diet is probably a lot of vegetables, lean protein, whatever the typical stuff that we all should be eating. Then that's probably what allows him to do what he does. But the thing is, you have to think to prepare for this. He's got to. I mean, the way you train to do something is to do it to some degree, and so I wonder what his training regimen's like leading up to the contest. I mean, that I don't know how long it takes, a month, 2 months, 6 months, but over that time frame of his, we'll call it training camp, I wonder how many hot dogs that man consumes. I mean, it's got to be astronomical.
The thing is I looked this up and apparently they starve themselves or fast for long periods of time before the contest. So I don't know how they do that. And I was reading an article about the guy you mentioned before. Kobayashi was his name. He was the guy. He had a whole bunch of those titles, and then Joey Chestnut came along, and I think Joey Chestnut is now won 16 of these in a row, and his number has just increased and increased and increased. I think the other day he ate 62 of those, which is insane. Like 62 hot dogs. That's insane. What is that? Like 8 packs of hot dogs with buns. That's how do you even prepare for that? Like, what do you get up and say, okay, it's my day? Like when I train for marathons, it's like, okay, you got to run 15 miles today. What is it? I've got to eat 30 hot dogs today in one sitting, not just over the course of the day, in one sitting. There's got to be some training. And I wish we could I would actually love to interview somebody who, there have to be like personal trainers who do this shit, who train people to expand their stomachs for that one day a year that they eat however many hot dogs they can eat or drink as much Kool-Aid as they can. I don't know. It's just the craziest thing to me because it's like porn, right? It's got to ruin sex. This has got to ruin food.
Well, for a lot of them, it's probably more than just once a year. I think a lot of these guys participate in multiple eating contests, right?
100%.
And like you said, there's probably trainers and stuff. Like this day and age, I guarantee you there is science behind what they're doing. You know what I'm
It's like
saying? That's
NASCAR
what's
for food.
crazy. Seriously, man. Like there's analytics for competitive eating, I guarantee. Like, and you know, the fact that they dip their buns in water, like soggy buns, soggy buns, clip that one out. I just I'm intrigued by I love competition. I mean, I would watch two guys kick a rock across the dirt parking lot or whatever if there was something on the line. I mean, so I love the fact it's competition. I wouldn't say it grosses me out, but it just makes me wonder, like, how do you feel after that? You know, like you mentioned, you felt terrible after Moe's, and Moe's probably feels like they've got a safe bet. Yeah, they're giving away Moe's for a year, but you're not going to want to eat Moe's for a year or
So
life, maybe.
I was nice. I actually gave it to somebody who lived in Gainesville. So you could go once a week for 52 weeks and you could buy as much as you want. So they would bring all their friends. Once a week, they had a Moe's date. So you're welcome to the Gainesville crew for eating Moe's once a week on my stomach. But 2 minutes and 13 seconds. It was amazing. But let me tell you a funny anecdote about that. Uh, the local newspaper wanted a quote from me, and they asked me. I'm still just amazed that I said this out loud because this is far and away different than the Matty Ice that you know today. And they asked me what was my strategy, and I said this, and I'm not kidding. I just kept swallowing.
I mean, it's hilarious, it's candid, and it's true,
True.
right? I mean, that's absolutely what you did and led you all the way to a runner-up finish. So
Oh yes, I
there's
know. It was the last heat that beat me. I would have had free Moe's for life. And you know what? I probably wouldn't have eaten it. I haven't eaten it in a long time, not because of that. It was just amazing. Like the whole experience was crazy. And there used to be video footage of it. I don't know where it went, but either way, let's talk about Joey Chestnut. So I'm going to start you off easy. I'm not going to read all of these because he's got a lot of world records, but some of them that may hit home for our listeners and viewers. So everybody likes popcorn, right? We go to the movies. We usually have popcorn at the movies. This was last year. Joey Chestnut ate 32 24-ounce servings of popcorn in 8 minutes.
good lord. I mean, I don't like popcorn that much. It's okay. Like I'll eat popcorn once in a while, but rarely because all the little things get stuck in your teeth and it just drives me crazy. I
Yeah, I
can't.
know.
How do you not choke, man?
I don't know. So that was last year, and that's a little crazy. This one really grossed me out. So shrimp cocktail is a very very popular appetizer that people serve at parties and stuff like that. I mean, we actually had some the other day. So shrimp cocktail. He ate 18 pounds, 9.6 ounces of it in 8 minutes, and he did that in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Gosh, that'd be like two babies like worth of shrimp cocktail, right?
But it's shrimp, like it's raw shrimp. Like that's the weird part is like I could never eat or consume that much seafood all at once. Also in 2018, this is really really good. Hostess donuts, which I think are those little mini donuts that they have. I think they might be powdered. It doesn't say whether they are or not, but he ate 257 of those in 6 minutes.
That's nuts. So I got to sidetrack you for a minute because you said
Yes,
something, and
please.
it's funny because it's only like it's the second time in my life I've heard someone use the word, but it's also the second time this week. Okay,
Really?
donut. All
Yeah.
right. My dad, I went up to the store over the weekend. Shows up. He's got 3 bags, got the powdered, got the chocolate, got the crunch one. He's like and literally, like, 5 times in 30 seconds, he says, "Donut." He's like, "I got these some chocolate donuts, Carver, you want a donut?" Well, I'm like, "Can we just call them donuts? They're mini donuts. Why are you saying donut?" I get if you say it, like, 1 time, but you've said it 5 times, like,
It's on the package.
I know it is, that's fine, but it's like, who actually calls them that? They're donuts, mini donuts.
I'll tell you who does. Rick Powell. That's who calls him that.
And Matt Frates, apparently.
I'm reading it from Wikipedia. Okay, look, your dad brought them in from the store and called them donuts, which means he's used that word before. Kind of like the A's announcer with the other word that he talked about.
Yeah.
Rick has used donut quite often to the fact that it's part of his lexicon now. He is a donut man, and you just got to live with it, man. You're his
Oh,
offspring.
and just the fact that I reacted the way I did, he's going to say it as much as possible for the rest of time.
Yeah, and the title for this episode will be Who's Bringing the Donuts? Okay, last one for you, the Big Mac, McDonald's Big Mac, which is one of the most overrated fast food sandwiches of all time. It used to be cool when I was a kid, now it's just overrated. He ate 32 of those in 38 minutes 15 seconds, which is a lot. I mean, that's like one per minute about. But I think about that and I'm like that feels slow, but there's a lot of bread in there. And there's also just a lot of crap in the Big Mac. So Joey Chestnut has done quite a bit. But it's funny to me because it's so America, right? Like competitive eating. We are the country of gluttony in a lot of ways. And this is not judging. Like you do whatever the hell you want. Like if you want to eat 62 hot dogs on 4th of July and do fireworks and blow off all your hands like Jason Pierre-Paul, man, go for it. Like I don't care. But it is so America. It's so America of the way that we are portrayed outside of this country. America. That's what competitive eating tells a lot of other people outside of this country, and that's just what I think of.
I mean, in a way, what a weird flex, right? To be
Yes.
the best at eating a lot. At the same time, you mentioned it earlier, and it kind of tripped my trigger a little bit. The the certain parts of the population that are like offended by this in a way, or like think that this is like a problem, and this is why things are the way they are. Like, at what point in time will people? We've talked about this before. At what point in time will people start just taking responsibility for themselves? And their own actions. Like watching a man eat 62 hot dogs on TV, like doesn't mean you have to overeat. And I'm sure someone would say, "Well, you're glamorizing it and whatever else." Well, hey, whatever. If little Johnny decides that he's gonna put it, if the one thing he decides he's gonna put his mind to is being a competitive eater, you should be a damn good parent and support him.
It is a weird flex. But then again, there's a lot of weird flexes that happen in this country and honestly all over the world. People flex the weirdest crap. But I agree. But you talked about responsibility, and this is a tangent. People don't take responsibility anymore. And it's a rare quality. And again, like I'm not judging you, whoever's watching this and all that. Like you do whatever it is that you do in life. Coach and I really don't care. But the people that are in our circle, we can call out when they don't take responsibility. And I know I see it a lot. And you see a lot of complaining in this country and all over the world about how things aren't going their way and you talk about this too. There's a lot of people who want to virtue signal about something that they see. So, oh, look at that. It's gluttonous and we need to stop doing that. But they're not going to be part of the solution, right? And you can extend that to just about any political argument or any political talk that you have. A lot of people want to just point the finger and say that's a problem, and then they're not part of whatever we do to make it happen. So, if if this gluttony offends you because you think that we could use these resources in other ways, be a part of that solution, right? Write your congressman or woman, write your local politician to talk about these things. Go donate at food banks. Go do things at soup kitchens around the holidays. Do actual real stuff. Your person, your individual person that can help it out. And yeah, maybe it doesn't make a dent in the larger grand scheme of things, but it does make a dent in a small way. And I think that those small dents add up to larger dents. But people don't want to do that. They just want to say it and then move on. And that's the way I feel about this too. Like, I don't watch it. And that's cool, right? I don't watch the NFL Combine. I had a whole rant about how I think the NFL Combine is stupid. And somebody commented, well, don't watch it. Well, guess what, pal? I don't. So it's cool. Like, we're fine.
Yeah, and you mentioned taking action, right? If you have a problem with something enough to the point where you're going to point it out and sort of get on your soapbox about it, then you should take action. I think about that, right? I mean, it doesn't get me in trouble. It probably will someday, but I'm kind of that way in the sense that, like, if someone's being an asshole, I'm not gonna tell everybody else I think that person's an asshole. I'm just gonna tell that person I think they're an asshole. That's my way of, I guess, attempting to do something about it or attempting to act. I'm like, someone needs to tell this person that they're a giant asshole,
Like last
So
week?
what that last week or whatever, or the softball crazy softball guy, whatever it is, right? I mean, so that's my thing is, and I'm not perfect about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I can be a judgmental son of a gun, but I at least attempt to put my money where my mouth is when applicable, if you will.